Hello and welcome to the session. My name is Tarun Bahal. I'm the team head for SAP Development Cloud and Integration team at Sika, based in Zurich, Switzerland. Today we're going to talk about the integration capabilities that we use from SAP in our SAP Landscape globally. And to start off with, I would like to give a brief introduction about Sika itself. So we are a global company operating in about 100 countries today. We are primarily into construction chemicals and automotive business. And we operate in eight key target markets. Everything related from roofing till flooring and everything in between for when it comes to construction. Plus, we are also a player in the industry, especially in the automotive and white goods industry. So just to give you an example, if you're driving a car that was manufactured anytime in the last decade, it's very likely that you have a car that contains some of the other products that were produced in one of our automotive plants. Some of our key projects or main projects mentioned is we started off Sika started off with Gotthard Tunnel more than 110 years ago. And recently, the Gotthard Tunnel, second Gotthard Tunnel was built again in Switzerland. It's the longest tunnel in the world, and Sika's products were used very extensively in this tunnel. Another big project that we have recently been lucky enough to participate in was the Macau Bridge. This is one of the longest bridges in the world, and Sika's products again were used in the construction. So as I was mentioning before, Sika, you might not have heard of Sika before, but we are quite present in day-to-day products that everyone uses. More than 50% of new cars that are manufactured worldwide today contain one or the other Sika products. We also are quite big in the DIY retail stores or distribution market, and also in white goods like dishwashers and so on and so forth. Now, talking about SAP Footprint at Sika, we have been running an alliance program, which is SAP implementation program at Sika for more than 12 years now. During this time, we have rolled out Sika or SAP in Sika in the European region and in North America, as well as Latin America. We've started with Latin America last year. We also have companies or smaller companies running business by design. In total, as of end of 2019, we had 52 legal entities running on SAP. We had close to about 6,000 users running on or using SAP products, and more than 50% of Sika's business runs on SAP today. Our target is in the next 5 years, 6 years, we're going to have a much larger footprint, and we would like to roll out SAP in bigger countries and business by design in our smaller countries. Currently, we're also running a program which started early this year to migrate from ECC 6 Enhancement Pack 8 to S4, and we're doing a brownfield conversion and targeted to go live in April next year. Now, so this session today, and I would be talking about usage of integration products from SAP. And just to start off with, I would like to give you a hint of scale of integration at Sika. So today we do over 1 billion francs of business just on EDI alone, which is running on SAP's integration products. On SAP PO, we have a little over 1,300 interfaces, and 91% of our data volume is transferred through SAP PO today. We use it extensively for B2B integration, as well as A2A integration, both for some of the on-premise systems and some cloud systems today. We extensively distribute master data, keeping SAP a single source of truth. We also have some business to government interfaces here. Then we've been building quite a lot of interfaces now also on the integration suite, on SAP Cpi. And here we have some B2B interfaces for our business by design tenants. We also distribute master data from business by design. we have quite a few A2A interfaces, a lot of B2G interfaces, which use the pre-packaged content that SAP provides. And we have also been using SAP for one of the IoT projects that we did last year, where we have some services that our smart things and sensors in the field that they are able to consume. We also have CPI for data services and SDI agents for smart data access. These are used for integration with SAP IBP, as well as providing data access to a HANA database on the cloud. We have recently started using SAP API management as well. We have 2 APIs at the moment live, 5 are under development, and we are using API management to expose unified APIs or system agnostic APIs, whether they are coming from ECC or they're coming from Design by Design. Integration breakdown. We today manage a large part of our interfaces are B2B interfaces. We have 1,000 agreements maintained in SAP TPM on PO. We are connecting with 13 different WAN providers, but we also have our connectivity is direct with our B2B partners, be it customers, vendors, freight carriers, and so on and so forth. We very extensively use SAP AIF, Application Integration Framework, and all the partner-specific logic or business logic is all maintained in SAP AIF, segregating the technical logic that goes into integration layer for SAP PO or CPI. Business logic remains in AIF. In 2019, we moved around 32 million messages on SAP PO and about 1 million messages on SAP CPI. We are big fans of the prepackaged content that SAP provides, and we have utilized this content not just for B2G, but also for SuccessFactors integration. We did an upgrade project which started in 2018 and we went live last year, where we upgraded SAP PO from a single stack 7.5 system. And at that point in time, we also replaced all our CCBPMs with iFlows that are running on the CPI runtime on SAP PO. We have also started using the Integration Advisor quite extensively. We have used it to create our guidelines and B2B artifacts. And as I mentioned before, we have now started using API management, and we are trying to expose as much of APIs as possible to have an independent segregation between applications and to move away from point-to-point connectivity. As the pilot, we have also one of the pilots that we're doing as part of the 5 interfaces or 5 APIs that are in development at the moment will also include usage of enterprise messaging, which will be used to publish events to all consuming applications, so they're notified as and when new data is available or there's a change in a data set. Currently, we're supporting authentication via SAML, so we can have console publication. But for some of our systems used within Sika that cannot support or cannot propagate SAML, we are also providing an option of using GWT. Now, we're going to look at a very high level integration or the landscape at Sika. So here you can see on-premise, we run fairly large landscape of SAP systems, including ERP systems, transportation management, GTS, MII, standalone EWM systems, and so on and so forth. As I mentioned before, the ECC system is currently being in the process of being migrated and a brownfield migration to S4 1909, which is scheduled to go live next year. Then for integration, we have a central instance of SAP PO, which is also running the CPI runtime, which is used basically to connect with all the systems that we have within Sika network and used by Sika companies. For all external communication, which is outside Sika and Sika's network, we run a separate adapter engine, SAP PO advanced adapter engine, which is located in our DMZ between firewalls. This is where we also host our cloud connector and some of our integration agents. Then coming to cloud platform, we have various sub-accounts for different purposes. We have a sub-account where we host CPI and API management and enterprise messaging and integration advisor. We also use PEPAL, which is for the e-document reporting or B2G reporting within Europe, within EU. We have another sub-account which is purely for our IoT scenarios. Then another sub-account where we have more of UX-based services, be it Fury Cloud and build and theme design and so forth. What we are going to focus today is on this part, which is looking at how we use the integration capabilities from SAP and some of our use cases. Now, if you look at PO, then we use the central PO instance to connect with the systems that we have in-house. So we run a B2B eShop running on SAP Hybris, which is integrated via using SAP PO. Then we run another Hybris instance, which is for product information management, also integrated via PO. Then we have some databases which are used to propagate or to provide access to the master data, which is in SAP, SAP being the single source of truth. Then we also connect with a lot of production systems in our plants, and some interfaces, legacy interfaces, still use files. So we still support those as well. Then the advanced adapter engine in the DMZ is used for connecting with our partners for B2B integration. And you can see some of the protocols and formats that we support today. This is not an extensive list, but this provides a very high level of different technologies and protocols that we support. We connect with some of our third-party logistic providers, plus we also have connectivity to Salesforce in the cloud and some of the other applications as well. Moving on, if we look at our Cpi tenants, so we have the secure connectivity between a cloud platform and on-premise systems using the cloud connector, which basically creates a very secure connectivity without having to create virtual connections or without having to have hardware-based VPN tunnels. It's very simple to set up. Use CPI today to access data from our backend systems via the cloud connector. And also then we connect with some mobile applications that we have, which are able to consume some services hosted via CPI. We also have B2B integration for the companies that are running business by design. We also connect with some third-party logistics in Eastern Europe. And we have a big usage of our Cpi tenants is also for B2G scenarios. One of the interesting cases that we have is for the IoT project. We have some sensors which are in the field at our customer locations for a specific use case. Now, these sensors typically connect with the Internet of Things or IoT services hosted on another sub-account on our cloud platform tenant. But these sensors authenticate using certificates, and so these certificates are valid for 1 year. So every time a sensor approaches or a certificate approaches end of life, the sensor has the capability that it can call a service hosted on CPI and request for a new certificate. CPI in turn will connect with IoT tenants for the sensor that is requesting a new certificate. It will extract the certificate. There are some modifications and encryption and decryption that happen within CPI, and then the certificate is provided to the sensors. Some other use cases that we do have are we also use PEPAL or subscribe to PEPAL, which is used for the invoice reporting and some legal requirements within European Union. On-premise, we do connect also to our on-premise SMTP service for alert emails, as well as some other functionality. We are also connecting with SAP BI, wherein we use CPI to collect data from some of the companies that are again on business by design for some global reporting. Now let's look at CPI data services and smart data access. So in our DMZ, we are hosting a bunch of integration agents. Some are DS agents, data services agents, and we also have the smart data integration agents there. Now, these agents are used to provide access to data to IBP, and provide process integration with our on-premise systems. But this is not the only use case. We also have HANA databases in the cloud where we run some processes without having to replicate data in the HANA database. We are able to virtually access the data that is in our SAP systems. And based on this data, we are then able to run some processes in excess code on the HANA database itself. Now, talking about API management and enterprise messaging. So again, here we connect with our on-premise systems using SAP Cloud Connector. We use API management for exposing certain services, which are mainly from our sales processes. So we have a couple of APIs which provide access to documents, for example, things like price letters that we have already published and already sent to our customers. So in this case, our sales team using Salesforce can access these documents from SAP real time. So every time there's a new document created in SAP, it's readily available also to Salesforce without having to replicate this data. Some of the other use cases that we are supporting now are things like access to pricing within SAP. This is done via price simulation, and using API management, which basically allows us to use principal propagation from Salesforce using SAML or JWTs. We are also able to have a strict control on authorization topics, as well as keep the whole process very secure. Now we are doing a pilot with enterprise messaging, wherein we are going to publish events for some of the master data that was created as well as changed or deleted, both in on-premise SAP systems, be it Business Suite or S4 systems, as well as business by design. Consuming applications or that require access to this master data to receive the notifications via enterprise messaging if they subscribe to one of the event queues, and then have access to that data via some of the other APIs that we're going to expose. Now, this helps us a lot that we no longer have to build point-to-point interfaces as we used to do in the past for replicating this data or this kind of data to all different systems that we use within Sika. And we see a huge benefit here. By building one common set of APIs, the applications are free to consume them and treat the data as they like. We are still able to maintain a level of security in API management using the policies, just to make sure our backend systems are not overloaded as to restricting how many calls can be made or who actually has access to this data. Now, one key aspect in having such a large landscape is also monitoring. As we mentioned before, we transfer millions of messages through the integration products, and which brings in monitoring, which makes monitoring as a very important concept. So we always pay a lot of attention while designing a new integration service or a new interface as to who's responsible for what for monitoring purposes. So just to talk about, as I mentioned before, we very extensively used SAP AIF. We've been using it since 2015, and all our interfaces and integration services that we have built since 2015, they've all been routed through SAP AIF for the on-premise integration. So this allows us to segregate business logic from technical mapping logic that we need to do for any interface. The business logic always remains within AIF, and all the mapping logic still moves to the integration products, be it SAP PO or CPI. Our business users all throughout the world are able to use the SAP AIF monitors, interface monitors, to monitor their own interfaces which are relevant for them. To allow this, we use the authorization concept that AIF provides, and we have built a very strong framework around this. So users only have access to data relevant, which corresponds to the organization that they're working in, as well as to their business function. So it's not a free for all. Not everyone gets access to all the data that AIF. Then looking at SAP PO monitoring, we raise a lot of alerts. We have an alert framework that we utilize from PO as well, which is for the IT team or my team, which looks at all the interfaces that run into an issue or into an error on PO. We use the standard message monitoring and channel monitoring built into SAP PO. But we also have an extensive usage of the B2B monitors for all our B2B integration. Again, here we have built some custom authorization objects, which allow us to provide access to some of our key users, some key business users, who need to have access to some payloads, especially for the B2B interfaces, in order to be able to connect with partners who might be our customers or vendors, and so on and so forth. Then moving on, looking at monitoring in CPI. Now, recently, SAP had released a service which was to be consumed together with SAP Analytics Cloud, wherein there was an OData service and a dashboard that SAP provides out of the box. It seemed quite interesting for us, so we did deploy it on our SAC tenant. But we also used that opportunity to rebuild the dashboard that the SAP provides, and we created our own dashboard, which is a bit more informative and provides us a bit more information at a glance. And from here again, we also have certain flows running in CPI that monitor all the messages that flow through CPI, and then raise an alert in case something goes wrong. So let's talk about how did we actually get here? What have we done since the time we have been using SAP products for integration? And what is it that we plan to do in the coming years? So we started off with SAP at the beginning of the last decade. And we did, so we started off with SAP NetWeaver running SAP PO 7.1, which was then upgraded to 7.11 back in 2010. We did another migration, another upgrade to 7.4 in 2014. And then in 2018, we started off the project for migration to a single stack NetWeaver 7.5, which we finished early 2019. This was a very extensive project that we undertook. We had to migrate a little over 1,000 interfaces, connecting to over 2,000 different partners, over about 1,000 partners. But we did use this opportunity to clean up our systems. We revisited our guidelines that we have followed all this time. We updated them. And that was the first thing that we did. Now, during the migration and during the upgrade, it wasn't a one-to-one migration. We actually did a lot of rework with these interfaces, which required also revalidation and retesting as well. Then now going forward, we would like to use the integration capabilities of the integration suite on the cloud for more agile integration developments. We also moved some of the existing scenarios that we were running on existing integration that we were running on SAP PO, and we actually migrated them to CPI. A use case here would be success factors, because we are using some of the pre-packaged content from SAP to connect on-premise systems to success factors. This was also a good time to consolidate the interfaces in one system, and the interfaces that we were running on-premise, we actually moved them to CPI. What we also did here is some of the CCBPMs that we had in the older versions of PO. They were rebuilt as iFlows in CPI, but they are still running on-premise in the CPI runtime that SAP PO 7.5 provides. So what we want to do, as I mentioned before, the upgrade to 7.5 was a big milestone in the journey for us to get where we are. This was not a simple one-to-one migration. It was not a simple NetWeaver upgrade. This was actually a brownfield migration where we looked at each and every interface that we have, and each and every interface and each and every mapping was touched and rebuilt. With going forward, our priority is to look at every new integration, every new interface that we build for validating if we can do this on the cloud using the integration suite, and only in certain cases do we have to bring this, we'll continue developing on the on-premise systems. Going forward, as we know that SAP PO support is available for approximately 9 more years, so we do have to plan for migrating the on-premise content and the interfaces that we have today all to the cloud, all to CPI runtime at least. So this is all under planning at the moment. Some of the approaches that we are using currently are all the point-to-point interfaces or application-to-application interfaces that we have existing in our systems. We would like to switch them to API management to provide a secure way of access to this data, but let all the connecting applications to have the opportunity to consume this data and connect and get access to this data on their own, instead of us having to connect in multiple different technologies, multiple different protocols, and so on and so forth. Then we will look at the cloud integrations. So on-prem to cloud integration that we have currently running on PO. So any such use case, one of them being connecting to Salesforce, which is a very extensive or a very large contributor to the number of messages that we handle today. We would like this also to move to CPI. Some of the APIs that we are currently developing will be consumed by Salesforce, which will help us reduce the number of interfaces that we have for on-premise to cloud scenarios running on-premise and bring them onto the cloud environment. Now, any BPMs running on PO, we decided during our upgrade project that we will switch them to CPI. Where we do need to run them on-premise, we will use the CPI runtime on SAP PO, and that's what we did with all our CCBPMs that were running on our old PO systems. Currently, our tenants are running on Neo. We are also in the process at the moment to migrate to Cloud Foundry, which will help us keep in line with all the new features that SAP will provide only on Cloud Foundry going forward. This is the end to the presentation. However, we do have a sort of wish list from that I would like to talk about from SAP. So for us to be able to achieve migration to cloud with all the extensive integration content that we're running today, there are certain functionalities or feature parity that we would require on the integration suite, especially in the B2B space. Integration Advisor already is a great tool helping us with the definition of B2B integration, supporting quite a large subset of all the different EDI formats. However, we know that SAP is working on a trade TPM solution for cloud, and that's something that we look forward to. But also when it comes to be able to test certain interfaces, the testing tools that are available, support for more message formats for EDI. These are the things that we look forward to. We also wish to see a tighter integration between API management and CPI, as well as with open connectors, because that's another use case that we look forward to using in our landscape soon enough in the near future. But overall, having discussions with SAP and being in touch with the product owners, we are aware that there's a lot of activity that's ongoing with SAP, within SAP, and we look forward to be able to participate and use the new solution soon enough. This will be the end of my presentation. Thank you for joining.